You are listening to Beyond the Wheel, a podcast about the people and ideas that drive the RV community forward.
Looking to get out there and stay out there? Battleborn Batteries lithium-ion batteries are here to power your RV, marine, and off-grid adventures. Designed as an easy drop-in replacement for traditional lead-acid batteries, these reliable solutions have 2 to 3 times the power, charge 5 times faster, are a fifth of the weight, and last 10 times longer. Offered in a variety of models in unique sizes and shapes, ranging from 50 amp hour to a robust 270 amp hour. And backed by a 10-year warranty. Battleborn batteries are built to fit your needs and power your experiences. On the road, on the water, and off the grid, reliable power is here. Check them out at battlebornbatteries.com.
Hey, all, and welcome back to Beyond the Wheel podcast. In this episode, we get real about the questions you're afraid to ask. From the dreaded pyramid of poo to whether you can pee while rolling down the highway, we're tackling the awkward, confusing, and sometimes downright gross parts of RV life. No judgment, no sugarcoating, just straight answers to the stuff that you have Googled at 2 a.m. So let's get into it. Hey, Sean, what's going on today?
Hey, Kenny. I'm afraid to start talking about some of these because maybe we both have different answers to some of these questions, and then we'll have to figure out who's right.
Right before we hit record, we did say, should we go through these and then see what our answers are? But I agree with you. We did not do that. I think you're right. I think it's better just to go into this blindly, see what we respond to. Like you said, who's right or who's wrong? It's not always a right or wrong answer, but we might find out that maybe one of us are a little grosser than the other one.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think the best place to start where people are the most afraid to talk about RVing, or sometimes the most popular topic of RVing, is that of the RV toilet, black tank, and toilet paper, and all things kind of related around potty.
Yeah, and I think there's Liz Wilcox a few years ago had a book that was all about this black tank mystery.
Yeah, she did. She did. So
Yeah.
I know it's a popular topic. And I know one of the questions that I hear asked a lot, and I'm really curious to hear what your answer is, because I feel like Sabrina and I are maybe not in the norm on this one, is do you need to buy like special RV toilet paper for your RV? And I'm going to let you answer first, Sean.
Well, I think the short answer, if I was giving somebody just a quick answer, I would say yes. But if you get into more detail, the answer could be no, because you could use a toilet paper that is advertised as rapidly biodegradable or some that are septic safe, which I think are mostly single ply toilet paper.
Mm.
So I think you want to use RV toilet paper as much as possible, but in a pinch, no pun intended, you a single ply toilet paper I think will work. And the reason why you want to use a biodegradable or rapidly dissolving toilet paper like the RV toilet paper is that you don't want to get clogs in your black tank exit
Yeah.
when you're flushing your tanks, because then that could get expensive to unclog it.
Yeah, yeah. I have to agree with you as well. I don't think it has to be that, like you said, Sean. Walmart. If you go into Walmart, you go into the camping section. They do have toilet paper that is written right on it, RV toilet paper. I don't, and I think that is the right toilet paper to use, but that's not always the case. You don't have to. You can use like a RV, not an RV. Sorry, you can use like septic safe. Like you said, it's almost likely be a single ply or something that breaks down quickly. I know Sabrina and I use a lot of the septic safe ones. We also use a clear elbow on our dump end so that we can see what's happening. I know that's not the most exciting thing to watch, but I do like to make sure everything's flowing. I think it's important to have that clear elbow. We can see that our toilet paper, even the septic safe one, is broken down. It's not coming down in chunks. It's actually, you can just see like the little white wisps
Yeah.
go through. So we know that it is breaking down properly.
Yeah, we have on our house is a septic system. So we use septic safe toilet paper at our house, and that's mostly what we use in our RV too. It's not it's easy to do
Yep.
it. And
Yeah,
we
that
have the clear elbow too, so you can see what's moving.
Yeah, we're in the same boat here, Sean, because we have the septic tank at the house also. So we just feel like it's easiest for us to be purchasing the same toilet paper that we use here in the house and the same for the RV. And if you guys remember back when we talked to the company Clean Tank, he was talking about how our tanks in our RV are meant to be just holding tanks. It's just temporary. You open the valves, you're constantly flushing. And he also had mentioned that septic safe RV toilet paper was also safe for the RVs, and I consider those guys to be the experts. So
Yeah,
I
for
think
sure.
we're safe to say that you could probably use either one, but do not use just standard toilet paper. I believe you would run into a problem with that. I think you would get a clog.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, better to avoid it.
Hmm. Hmm.
Another one about the black tanks, Kenny, is what if I forget to close the black tank before dumping the gray?
So I don't think it's catastrophic, but I do think that you will suck up a little bit of black tank fluid up into your gray area, but you're going to flush that right back out the next time you dump the gray. So I don't think there's any emergency involved in it. I don't think there's really anything that you need to worry about. You might get a little bit of a foul odor in your RV for a little bit. But again, I think you're going to be able to flush that out, and no harm or no permanent damage is going to be caused by doing that.
Yeah, and if you do, I suppose you could just fill up your gray tank quickly
Yeah.
and flush it again.
Yeah, and you'd be good. You'd be good
Yeah.
to go. If you were worried about odors and stuff like that, they do make a gray tank deodorizer that you can use. I'll bring up Clean Tank again because we're still on the subject, but they have on their website a little mixture that you can just make at home. Sean, you make a homemade version of
Yep.
cleaners as well. I'm not sure. Do you use it in your gray and your black, or is it just for your black?
We just use it in the black, but you could use it in your gray.
Yeah, just if you wanted to be sure that you had cleaned it out after
Yeah.
maybe making that mistake of leaving that black tank open. So, yeah, I don't think this is anything for anybody at home or in their RV listening to this. I don't think it's a catastrophe or anything really to worry about. But the next one, I do think is something to worry about.
Big time.
I know when I was about to get into RVing, we were researching RVing, we kept on hearing this term, the pyramid of poo. And I was like, I don't even know what that is. I don't even think I want to know what that is. And what it is, I'll explain it quickly, is that if you're using your toilet, and we'll just say for number two often, but you're not really flushing with a lot of water, or maybe you're leaving your black tank open while at a full hookup site, you're not allowing water to get mixed in with that poo, and you will literally I'm sure everybody has seen this in a porta potty before, unfortunately. You will get to start stacking your poo, and it'll form into like a little pyramid shape, and that is not a good thing. You do not want a pyramid of poo. You always want a lot of water in your black tank. I feel as if, like, every time you flush the toilet in your RV, you wanna flush more than you would normally at home. You just need a lot of water in that black tank to make sure everything is flowing and leaving the RV. Because what's going to happen is it's going to cause your tank sensors to read incorrectly. You're also going to have terrible, terrible odors in the RV, and you're just not going to have. You'll never get that tank clean without having a good water to poo ratio.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we always, whenever we dump the tanks, after we flush the black tank, we always make sure that there's water. We always backfill it for
Yep.
like a minute or so to make sure there is at least some water in there to start. But yeah, you're right. Plenty of water will keep the poo pyramid. And I know this scares a lot of people from going to the bathroom in their RV, but it really doesn't have to as long as you're using the appropriate, like you say, poo to water ratio.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I do also, after I empty my black tank, I refill with some water in that black tank so that we're always starting with a higher water ratio, just to get us off on the right foot.
Yeah.
And I've also heard what you said, Sean. I know, especially from working these overland expo shows and stuff like that, people typically do not use their their bathroom to its full potential in their RVs because of this. They are afraid of that pure pyramid of poo is what I meant to say. Pure pyramid. I don't know. That might be a new word for it.
Yeah.
And I did mention earlier about leaving your black tank open when you're at a full hookup site. It's not something that I do. I don't recommend doing that. I actually don't even leave my gray tank open. I know that could be some people do, some people don't, but I don't think that's a good idea either because I think by leaving that gray tank open, again, you're not a lot of times when you open your valves, you feel a lot of force come through there. So same thing with your gray tank. It's kind of helping move everything through there. I think to have a little bit of that water and that momentum to kind of actually flush your tank out or empty your tank properly. I think it's a good idea to keep both your tanks closed. Also, when you do open your black tank and flush it, you want a considerable amount of gray water to come out after that. And you won't have that ability if you're leaving your hookups open all the time.
Yeah, we always keep ours closed until they're full and we dump. I
Okay.
never leave any of them open. Like you
Oh,
said, I think it's a good habit to get into because yeah, even if you just dump your black tank, there's all that black tank material not being flushed
mhm.
out of the main line there. So you want to flush that out, I would think.
Let's be honest. It takes minutes for you to like empty that gray tank. You could do it while you're leaving the campsite, when you're coming back. It's not even like you're making a special trip out the door to open that. It takes a few seconds to open it every couple times a week. So far, Sean, we are both like on par here. That we were agreeing on everything, but
Yeah,
I
that's
think we're
good with
on.
the black tank.
Yeah, that is good. We're going to move over to power, and I would imagine we might stay just right on pace here. Let's see.
Yeah, this is another scary area for people, I think. A
It
lot of people
is.
are intimidated by the power stuff with the RVs.
I think there's a lot of like, especially for anybody new to RVing, there's a lot of unknowns and some things that just may you might look at it and be thrown off because it's just different enough to throw you off, but it really isn't that different. It's just it can't it's just overwhelming sometimes because there is so much information out there.
Yeah, so the first one is, can I plug my RV into a regular house outlet? I kind of pair this with another question is because, some pedestals at campgrounds are either 30 amp or 50 amp or both. And so the way I think I put all these together in that if you have the right step downs or step ups, like I think they're generally called dog bones, where
Yeah.
you have the different power ends on each end of the wire, it's safe. It's safe to do that. The power will adjust accordingly depending on the dog bone or adapter that you have to use with your cord.
Yeah, I want to throw just a little curveball in there because I agree it is safe. I will say though, if you are on a 30 or 50 amp power source and you're stepping down, we'll say, to like your regular 110 outlet, you have to be careful of the electronics or the components in your RV that you're using. It'll power your RV, but it may not power your air conditioner and your microwave at the same time. You'll blow a breaker. Not the end of the world. You just flip your breaker and you'd realize, oh yeah, I forgot that I'm not on but it's completely safe. You're completely fine to do so, but you will blow a breaker. It's going to prevent you from being able to run like an AC and microwave at the same time. Whereas if you were on 50 amp, then you can run a microwave and AC at the same time with no issue.
Yeah, that's a good point. You can't use it to your full potential if you're stepping down.
Yeah. Yep. But other than that, it's totally safe. There's nothing, no harm that can really be done. You'll be fine. So the next one is, do you really need a surge protector or is it upselling? I don't know, Sean, do you want to take this one first? You want me to answer first?
Sure, I can speak from experience. Well, do you really need one? I guess the answer, do you really need one? The answer is no. Is it highly recommended to get one? The answer is yes. And I speak from experience because I did not have one and we were camped in Florida, and there was a thunderstorm, and lightning struck near, and there was a
Mm.
power surge, and we lost a lot of electronics in our RV that we had to get repaired because of that power surge. So ever since then, we've had a surge guard slash electrical management system, EMS. We have the Progressive Industries version. When you get something like that, it really protects your RV, all the sensitive electronics in there from being damaged when there is a surge. And then also with like a surge guard slash EMS, it will do other things like over and under voltage, which is like a surge, and open ground or neutral. It won't allow power to go through there. Reverse polarity, which I've seen happen as well. A miswired pedestal, accidental, like if you accidentally use the wrong voltage going into your RV, it will protect against that as well. So they're very helpful and could save you. Like the Progressive Industries 30 amp version is like $150 and it could save you thousands.
Yeah, for sure. It is absolutely, I don't think, upselling at all. I'd go as far as to say it's one of the most important RV accessories that you can carry with you. Like Sean said, it's doing more than just surge protecting you. It's letting you know about those open grounds and reverse polarities, which can cause damage to your RV as well. And yeah, they are not cheap. They are a little pricey. I use the Southwire brand. There are other brands, Sean. You said you use Progressive Dynamic. There's a few brands out there that you can shop around. I would just take a look at the reviews and stuff like that. But yeah, they're a few $100 or close to $100, but they are going to save you thousands. They're going to prevent your air conditioner from blowing up or a microwave from blowing up when that surge does go through. So yeah, but I do also agree with Sean. It's not something that you need. You don't have to use it. You can kind of roll the dice, as they say, and hope that you never run into an issue. But it's a level of protection that I would not go without.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, we rolled the dice our first couple years, and then ever since then we've used them religiously.
Yeah, and I do have friends that have never ever used a surge protector, and they RV. They lived full time in theirs, and they never. I mean, they never had a chance, or never had a problem. But like I said, that's kind of rolling the dice on that. Out of all the things that we do in RVing, $100 to $150 surge protector is not that expensive compared to everything else. So I think it's money well spent. We actually tried to get Southwire on the show to come on and maybe talk about the importance, but we never heard back from them. So if you guys are listening and you have a contact with somebody, it doesn't have to be Southwire or Progressive Dynamic, any surge protector company out there that wants to come on the show, we're looking to highlight anybody that's protecting these RVs and the electrical systems that are involved in them. And the RVs are only getting more and more advanced inside with more components. So, you could have a dishwasher inside your RV, of course, your microwave, your air conditioner, air fryers, all these items that you could lose them all in one single blast.
I will say it's not necessarily upselling, Kenny, but you may be able to save money on if you have one. Like, let's say you're buying an RV at a dealership and they want to hardwire one into your RV, you can probably do it cheaper by buying one that, goes plugs into your power line and into the pedestal.
Yeah,
Um,
and I
Probably much cheaper.
I think it's cheaper that way, and I personally believe that's the better way to go because now if it's hardwired and it blows up, now you gotta rewire. Like I find the portable one or the standalone version, like you said, Sean, the one that does plugs into the power soul. I believe that's the best way to go. I think that's
Yeah.
just the best way to go.
And they are weather safe, the ones that plug into the pedestal, so you don't have to worry about that.
Yep, I've been using them for like 8 years. They're great. They're so convenient.
This next one is a common question
Mhm.
that I hear, but it's different depending on the type of RV you have, and it is, will my batteries charge while I'm driving? And I will say I have a towable, I have a fifth wheel, and through that 7-pin connector, you will get a small trickle charge to your batteries, your house batteries we're talking about, the things that power the inside of your RV. You will get a small charge. I never noticed a huge difference. Now I have solar panels that charge the batteries while we're driving, so I'm not even concerned with the trickle charger. You can also get what they call a DC to DC converter. Is that right, Kenny?
I
That
think they
will
I think they consider it a DC to DC charger.
charger, that's right, charger. That you can wire if your alternator's big enough on your tow vehicle, or you can fit a second alternator, it will run additional wiring and you can get a better charge into your batteries while you're driving. But I know that's different in a Class A or a drivable motorhome.
Yeah, the drivable motorhomes, especially the newer ones, are coming with second alternators and things like that, and they're charging these house batteries, even the lithium house batteries, incredibly fast. I know for like Winnebago and the Winnebago Revel, the new Revel is using a secondary alternator that's being powered by that second alternator is charging at a 48-volt level, so it's actually putting out like something very close to 8,000 watts an hour
Wow.
for the lithium batteries. But even something that was like my RV that was built in 2016, single alternator, I was still getting a decent charge into my house batteries from driving around. And I think it comes to, I think you had mentioned this actually last week, Sean, because I was telling you that somebody had asked me this question during the Overland show. They were looking at a towable and the 7-pin connector. You're talking about a very, what do you think it is? A 16 gauge wire. It's not,
Very small.
yeah, it's not a robust wire, so there's only so much power that you can put through that 7-pin cable to charge, and that's where it's kinda limiting you on what you can do, whereas the motorhomes, they're using a heavy gauge wire for inside when they're coming off of the, alternator and stuff like that. They're by going with the 48-volt power, they can thin that wire down a little bit, but, for the most part, they're still heavy duty wiring. They're not 7-pin connector wiring. That wire is
Yeah.
really it might not even be a 16 gauge. I might be, a little generous with even being a 16 gauge wire. So that's what's really limiting. But the overall, the answer is yes. You know, those batteries will get charged while driving. It's going to vary from different brands. It's going to different from different setups, depending on how much, everybody travels a little different. Everybody's needs are a little different. Some people are more power hungry than others. Solar, I think, is a great substitute for it, and it's something that's working all the time. So, well, all the time during the day, but when you pull
Yeah.
over and you're having lunch, you're still getting that power, and it's not something that you always need the engine to be on for.
Yeah, that's one of the huge benefits I think of having solar is even when you're not plugged in, you can still maintain a good charge in your batteries.
Yeah, and it's quiet. There's no
Yeah.
noise involved in it or anything like that. It's yeah. Yeah, there's ways to amplify that charge that you're getting from driving because now you're doubling it. Because now when Sean's driving, he's still getting the charge from that 7-pin, but he's also getting a charge from the solar panels. It's not I think a lot of times people think it's one or the other. Like you have to select. Same thing when you're plugged in at a campground. If I plug in at a campground, I'm now getting power through my converter in my RV, plus I'm getting power from my solar panels. It's not one or the other.
Yeah.
So I think that confuses people sometimes.
Okay, well, I guess we can move on now to some travel and driving questions. Again, a big one that I hear, especially in the towable world, is it okay to drive with the propane on?
Mhm,
And generally, the answer is no. And in a lot of places, there's laws actually
mhm,
against driving with your propane on. So if you get pulled over and they check and your propane's on, you're going to get in some additional fines to go along with your whatever you got pulled over for originally. And then particularly where there's tunnels and bridges, they even have some pull off spots where you pull off and just double check your propane to make sure that it's off. So generally the answer is no, you cannot do that. I've done it by mistake before and it's been okay, but the danger is if you get in an accident or maybe some really heavy road debris comes up and busts one of your propane lines, it's a risk for fire. You can also have things like Kenny and I have on ours. We have a gas stop where if it detects a rapid release of propane, it will shut the propane off automatically to help prevent that. But we still shut our propane off when we drive unless I forget. But that's rare.
Yeah, I think even gas stops still recommends turning the propane off while traveling, even though their device is made to protect you from a runaway gas line, we'll call it. But it's more a sense of when stationary. Sean, you'd be surprised, like when I'm working shows, or maybe you wouldn't be surprised. People almost seem offended sometimes when I tell them that I turn my propane off because they don't. I'm not calling anybody out. I'm just telling you just, how I personally feel. Typically, the topic will come up with a 12-volt refrigerator, and I'm showing somebody an RB that has a 12-volt refrigerator, and I'll say to them, now you can drive down the road and leave your refrigerator on because it's just 12-volt electricity. And they're like, what do you mean? I leave my refrigerator on all the time with my propane. And I'll say, well, I personally never felt comfortable doing that. And they're like, they look offended when I say that. I'm not calling them out on it. Everybody's level of comfort is different. I believe the pros, like Sean mentioned, is if there was an accident or some type of debris that would cut a line or break a line, you are essentially, especially in my RV, I have an 18-gallon propane tank. That's a lot of fuel to to use on a fire. Whereas if my propane tank was off, it would only be the fuel that was in that line at the time, which probably wouldn't even be a gallon. So why give that fire almost like an unlimited fuel source is my thinking. I know it has happened. I know has been accidents caused by propane. I just don't think it's worth the risk. The only reason most people leave their propane tank on is because of the refrigerator. Your refrigerator, in a sense, and I mean, it's not even in a sense, it is a giant cooler anyway. So by you turning off your refrigerator and driving for a day, nothing's going to spoil. Everything's going to stay cold in that refrigerator unless you're going to open the door and leave it open. But you just going in and grabbing a drink real quick and closing it up, you're not going to harm anything that's in your fridge. Same thing with your freezer. Your freezer's going to stay cold all day. So I just don't think it's really worth the risk of turning the propane off. I have forgotten to, like Sean mentioned, I have forgotten to turn my propane off at times, and nothing happened. Knock on wood. But I still believe the proper thing to do, the right thing to do, is to turn off your propane tank. If it wasn't, why would there be rules to turn off your propane while going in a tunnel? If it's 100% safe type of thing, there wouldn't even be a law to turn your propane off when going into a tunnel. So yeah, I think it's a good idea.
Yeah. Oh, I'm glad we agree on that one, Kenny.
Yeah.
Here's one that I don't have to worry about, but you do.
Uh-huh.
Can I pee in the bathroom while someone else is driving?
Yeah. So I mean, legally, yes, you can. But again, it's one of those safety things. Sabrina has gotten up to use the bathroom, but she does not like to do it. She does not like to get up while we're driving at all because, of course, you're I mean, kind of common sense here. You're in a moving vehicle driving down a highway, possibly doing 60, 62 miles an hour. If something were to happen, she's not strapped in anymore.
The toilet doesn't have a seatbelt.
There's no seatbelt on the toilet. Yeah. I mean, I know people that will go in the back and lay down on their beds while their partner is driving. I don't know what the word would be for us. I mean, we're maybe sometimes overly cautious. You're probably okay to 90% of the time to do these things. And Sabrina has gotten up to use the bathroom, but it's been, I wouldn't say extreme emergencies. It's just like, she drank something and it's going through her quickly and there's not enough time for the next rest area. So she gets up and she has, when you gotta go sometimes type of thing. But yeah, we generally do not like getting up. Sabrina doesn't even, and we have seatbelts in our dinette, but Sabrina doesn't even like to sit in our dinette and seatbelt into our dinette. She likes to be in the actual, I guess you could say, proper chair with a shoulder strap and everything. And I will say, newer RVs are now coming out with the shoulder strap even in the rear of the RV as well. So
Oh, okay.
it's something that more and more people are concerned with, enough that the RV industry is actually making, instead of just a lap bar, the full 3 point. Maybe that's not called a 3 point, but I think it is. seatbelt harness, even for the back seats of an RV. So, yeah, but like you said, Sean, you don't have to worry about it. You did rent that Class C though in Florida, but I guess it was a pretty short drive for you guys that maybe it's not something that kind of even arose.
Yeah, and Julie was following me in our car, so
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I was driving, so yeah, and it didn't come up at all. I don't think I would, like you. I'd rather be safe than sorry.
The way Sabrina and I travel anyway, we're on like the major highways a lot of time, 10, 20, 40, 80, and we pass a lot of rest areas. So typically Sabrina can hold off. There are some occasions though that we are on little one lane lanes. And I'm trying to think like going like up through like area, I think. And there is no rest area for a long period of time. There are times that in a pinch she has to, because it becomes a problem for me too, that sometimes I just have to hold it longer than I want to because I can't find a place to pull over. In a smaller vehicle, that probably wouldn't be an issue, but in our big Class A, while telling our options of just pulling over anywhere are a little bit more limited compared to somebody in a Class B van or even a one of these like small Class Cs that don't even tow anything. They have a lot more options for pulling over.
Yeah, you need a big shoulder.
Yeah, yeah. Which kind of brings us to this next question. Do I need a special license to drive this thing? And I'm surprised, even still, that really you just your regular driver's license. You don't really need a special license to even drive something like a 44-foot Class A diesel pusher with air brakes because it falls under recreational vehicle. You don't necessarily need a special license. You can just kind of use your regular license unless you are going to use this vehicle for business somehow or for work. And you are now like dot certified or, sometimes a lot of times you'll see a truck on the side of it that says not for hire or something like that. They have turned that vehicle into their personal vehicle, and the laws, rules, regulations, everything is now different for that vehicle because it's not something that's being used in a commercial sense. And because these RVs are typically not being used in a commercial sense, as far as I know, you do not need any special license.
Yeah, and I would caveat that with if you are not confident or comfortable driving something that big, there are places that offer classes like FMCA, I know has one. And there are other like independent people that offer classes, especially like backing and things like that, that can be difficult, especially in a towable. Backing up can sometimes be a chore, which we'll get to later in the episode, but take a class, invest a couple $100 and take a class to be confident in driving it. It doesn't necessarily require a special license, but it does require some additional skill.
Yeah, skill for sure. And I know some states, I think, is it Texas? I know there are states out there that the laws are written in not a funny way, but written sometimes to make it sound like you need a license. But typically, once it becomes an RV or recreational vehicle, it kind of voids anything that is their laws for driving, and it's fine to drive the RV no matter how big it is. Yeah, it's kind of funny. Honestly, it is kind of weird that you could just walk into any RV dealer, buy the biggest vehicle out there with 0 training on it, and just drive it home. I mean, some of these things
Yeah.
are monsters.
Well, I
Um,
guess we move on to campsite life.
yeah, yeah.
And the first one is, how do I know which hose is for what at the campsite?
That's a great question, and there can be quite a few hoses. I'm thinking of your freshwater hose for drinking, your sewer hose for emptying your holding tanks, and I'm also thinking of a flush hose is something that I use. I would say your freshwater hose, your drinking hose, that's going to be a hose that is labeled clearly on the packaging somewhere that it is safe for drinking out of. Not all garden hoses should be drank from because of the metals that is made out of. So that hose there, you want to make sure is safe for drinking. Your sewer flush hose, which is going to be the same as any other garden hose, that can really be any hose because you'll never want to switch or mix them up. I actually keep my freshwater hose in a completely different compartment than my sewer hose flush. They are totally different colors. My drinking water is blue and my my sewer hose flush is white. But even still, I don't even want them really close to one another. I definitely don't want to make that mistake. And then your sewer hose is going to be, geez, I don't, you know what? Honestly, I don't know the exact size of it, but I would say it's around 3 to maybe 3.5 inches diameter hose. It's significantly larger. It's usually an accordion style that you can compress or expand, and that's going to be for your sewer, for your black tank, and your gray tank. A lot of people call them stinky slinkies. There's different names. They're typically brown in color. The two that you're really going to be most concerned with is that fresh water and then a hose for your black tank flush is what they call
Yeah. Yeah, and you definitely wanna make sure you have a potable water drinking hose for
it.
your fresh water that you're gonna be cooking and drinking from. Definitely look for the right hose for that.
Yeah, and I typically leave my water filter on that drinking hose all the time, so when I grab it, it's already kinda all set up. Actually, I leave the filter on there, and I also, leave my pressure regulator on that hose just so it's all
Oh,
ready to
okay.
go when I go to set up. Actually,
That's
some
a
I
good
saw
idea.
yeah, I saw a question the other day, Sean. I wanted to get your opinion on this. Somebody said this was a Facebook post. Does it matter which end I put the pressure regulator on? Does the pressure regulator have to be coming out of the spout before my filter, or can the pressure regulator be on my RV side of things? And I think maybe it doesn't matter too much, but for me it does. I believe I like to have the water pressure regulator before my filter, before my water softener, and even maybe possibly the hose. Could there be a harm or damage if the pressure was so great that it would be able to pop like a water hose? I feel like that would be some extreme pressure to break a water hose, but I guess it's possible.
I've always been taught that you put the pressure regulator as close to the source as possible. So we always put it as the first thing that comes out of the spigot and then connect everything from there. I don't know why. I'm sure there's some logic out there, but that's the way we were taught to do it.
I haven't done this in a long time, but there have been times in the winter that I have hooked it up the other way around where I'll just hook up my regulator inside the RV because at least it's in the cargo bay and it's warm so it doesn't freeze or break because I'm like detaching my water hose every night type of thing. But the last couple winters I haven't done it that way either. But I also feel like I'm doing that while I'm standing there just to fill my tank for the next couple days. It's not like I'm doing it and leaving it running and I'm even controlling how much I'm opening the faucet at the time. But yeah, I agree with you, Sean, and I think that's the proper way to say that too, closest to the source. I like that. Yeah, I think that's the smart way to do your connection because now you're protecting everything. Now you know everything down that line coming out of that source or that faucet is protected. Yeah, that's good. That's good, Sean.
Yeah, again, I don't know the reasoning behind it, but that's the way I was taught, so that's the way I do it.
So going back, do you think it's possible to make a water hose explode from pressure coming out of these faucets? Do you think any of those faucets would be strong enough to expand that vinyl nylon what blend that they have? That's be
I don't know, but
tough.
I think it could be strong enough to mess up your water filter.
That for sure. That I know for
Yeah,
sure. Yeah, it would definitely. Okay. All right.
yeah.
I like this next question, Sean. Is it rude to run your generator at night? And are we saying, is it rude to run a generator at night at a campground, or is it rude to run your generator at night even while dry camping or boondocking?
For the first one, at a campsite, I would say yes. It's definitely rude
I
to
agree.
run a generator at night, and typically in campgrounds that allow generator use, because not all campgrounds even do,
Hmm.
but in campgrounds that allow generator use, they normally have set generator hours.
Yep. Quiet
So
time.
and it's never at night. So you you don't wanna be bothering people with your loud generator when they're trying to sleep. So I would say yes. In boondocking, I would say No, unless you're camping with a bunch of people and you guys agree not to. But I don't think I would run my generator at night just because I'm worried about like carbon monoxide or
Mm.
a fire or something like that. I would shut it off while I was sleeping for sure.
Yeah, you and I are both lucky enough to have our battle-born batteries. This isn't really a question that we need to answer for ourselves, but I agree with you 100%. The campgrounds that do allow generator use definitely have quiet hours, and you're right. The generator is on that list of quiet hours. You're not allowed to run your generator overnight. The dry camping, I think, depending on where you are and how close you are to other people, I think you just have to use a good judgment. The generator noise doesn't usually travel too far. So, if you can see your neighbor, but he's far away enough, I think you're fine. You're not really going to disturb anybody. Somebody might, if you disagree with us, you can put this down in the comments. I know for some people they're running CPAP in the middle of the night, and maybe they have to run and they don't have the battery capacity. Maybe they need that generator running. I know I've been at rest areas or a casino or a gas station. People will pull up and the first thing they do is turn on their generator like right away and just leave it. Till they pack up and leave in the next morning. Like I said, Sean and I are lucky enough to have our battle-born batteries. We don't typically need to run our generator, especially just for one night. We have enough power to go all night with and power everything that we need, but not everybody is in that same situation. So I think this could be definitely a judgment call. Campground, absolutely not. Anywhere else, kind of a judgment call. If you're at a rest area, all the trucks are running their engines all night long anyway. So by you running your generator, you're not going to audibly be bothering anybody. And I guess fume wise, all the trucks are running. So you're not really fuming out anybody either. But I will say, a lot of people would want to stop, open up their windows, maybe turn on an exhaust fan. Well, you can't do that if everybody around you is running generators. You're going to suffocate yourself in fumes. So I think this is a gut and judgment call, depending on where you are, who's around you, and your own personal needs. But for the most part, I'm going to say it's rude.
Yeah, I am the one of the first things I did, Kenny, when we started RVing, and I knew I use a CPAP,
Hmm.
is I invested, and it wasn't cheap from what I remember. I think it was like $80, but a new cable for my CPAP that allowed it to run off of 12 volt. Because
Oh,
then you're using less battery
yeah.
power than if it was a 110. That seemed to work well before we had our solar and batteries. It I could run my CPAP all night. So for things that you absolutely need, that you're afraid that your batteries are gonna run out, see if there's a 12-volt option for those things, and that'll help a little bit.
I didn't know there was an option for that, Sean. I didn't know you could do a
Yeah.
CPAP off of 12 volt. That's great.
Yeah.
That is a lot more energy efficient, especially when in an RV anyway. So the reason being is that you don't have to take the 12-volt battery out of a you don't have to take the power from the 12-volt battery, invert it to 120. That's a power loss right there. So yeah, that's great. I didn't even know that was a possibility to run it straight off of 12 volt. That's awesome. Our next question is, what do people mean by leave no trace at a campsite? And I want to say, I think a lot of people think of this as dry camping or a boondocking question, but this can be also at your campsite. And I know a lot of times if you're staying at a KOA or a regular, any other campground, when you leave, they clean up after you. But you don't, doesn't mean that you have to leave trash in your fire pit. You could be respectful in these situations too and clean up a little bit after yourself at a campground as well. You don't have to be as careful as when you are boondocking or dry camping. Leave no trace means that you are leaving that area the same as you found it. I would say, you're trying to actually leave that area maybe even better than you found it. I know on the back of my Jeep, I have something called a trasharoo, and it's just an outside trash thing. So, when we do dry camp and boondock, if we pull up to a campsite that maybe wasn't cleaned up by the last person, we do our best to clean up as much as we can. Now, you do have to be careful. If there is a fire pit, I don't recommend putting your hands in a fire pit to clean up too much. You don't know what somebody left back there. It could be needles, it could be sharp objects. I do have some pretty heavy duty gloves that I can put on. So you might want to be careful. We also have like a little, I guess you would call it a trash picker that we can use also to pick things up if you don't want to pick up directly with your hands. So yeah, leave no trace to me means to leave an area better than I found it when camping. Sean, do you have a different take on that one?
No, no, I agree, and I think it's I th think you're right in that even if there's a little bit of trash there when you arrive, just because it wasn't you that left it, you should pick it up and, take it out so the next person doesn't have to deal with it.
I don't know if you feel this way, Sean, but I bet you maybe you do. I feel like we need to be good stewards or good representation of the typical camper or of the camper. And we're trying not to put out any negativity, any outside negativity onto us. We don't want RVers or campers to be looked at as a negative light. We've had several episodes where there's towns and cities and they try to stop a campground from being built because they feel like we don't want that energy in our camp in our town or county. I always try to make sure that us as RVers are as friendly as possible and as clean as possible and upstanding citizens. We're not trying to come through towns and cause a disaster for them to clean up
Yeah, and
afterwards.
I think it also not just trash and things like that, but I think back to when, they shut down the national parks for the government shutdown. Was that in 2019 or 2018?
Yeah.
And people went into the parks, and I remember, like, in Joshua Tree, they some of the actual Joshua trees got ruined, and lots of cacti got ruined. So I think it's also, like, in carving your name into trees and
Yeah.
things. I think it's things like that too. You don't wanna do those kind of things. You wanna, leave nature as it is and not sort of vandalize, I guess, is a good term for it.
Yeah, no vandalism. That is a good term for it, Sean. Yeah, and I know people were doing like I don't even like you just said, Sean. I don't even. I'm not a big fan of like even people carving their names in trees. Like
Yeah.
I feel like vandalism or graffiti in any form is kind of a I don't know. It really turns me off. I've taken my Jeep out and looked for like abandoned mines and ruins and stuff like that. And I'm always just surprised at how much graffiti I sometimes see on these ruins or these mines or an area that has petroglyphs. Like I don't know. It's not yours to mess with. Leave it alone.
Yeah,
It's just the
exactly.
way I look at it, I guess. Yeah, it's not your property. Leave it alone. Well, here's a good one, Sean, because I think maybe we'll have different opinions on this one. Should I talk to my neighbors or leave them alone?
You wanna go first or you want me to go
I,
first?
I'll go first because I am a pretty talkative person. And Sabrina and I were just coming back from the Sea Otter Classic, and we just backed in our RV, and our neighbors were outside at their campsite already, and we talked to them for probably 20, 25 minutes. Never met them before. They had seen us back in and just started chatting with us right away. And I am somebody that will talk to our neighbors. Sabrina does her best not to talk to neighbors. She usually has just her headphones in. She's more of a introvert, I guess. Sabrina's very friendly once you start talking to her or get to know her, but Sabrina will never be the first to strike up a conversation with somebody. She's fine with just seeing somebody waving and keep on walking. I'm a little bit of both, I would say. I am fine when, depending. If I'm walking Bell, I usually just wave and keep on walking. There have been times that I've been out by myself, though, as somebody has another Jeep in their sight or something that I think is cool. I will stop and ask somebody a question about their setup or just make conversation if they got a cool sticker or something on their car. But I do have a rule. My own personal rule is I don't talk to anybody when they're packing up their RV to leave because I'm afraid that I'll distract them and cause them to make a mistake. Maybe they're not, if they're in a towable, maybe not make all the proper connections. if they're flat towing a car or dollying a car or anything like that, I'm afraid that I'll mess them up and they don't make all their connections, or maybe even worse, maybe they don't put their awning in, or maybe they don't unplug from the pedestal because I was talking and distracting them. So I do have my own set of rules of like when I will talk to my neighbors. But yeah, I absolutely am somebody that's talking to the neighbors at the RV park.
Yeah, I would say unless you um, this is just for me, unless there's a major problem or something that you absolutely need help with, my answer would be no. Don't talk to your neighbors. But I'm very introverted. I can't handle a lot of people time. So it it's definitely different for me than for you. I typically don't talk to the neighbors. If somebody comes up and talks to me, yes, I'll talk to them, but I hope it's rare.
I hope it's rare. That's funny. And you're a very friendly person, Sean. And I don't want anybody to get the impression that you're not, but I think that's funny because I find you to be very talkative. At least when I'm chatting with you.
Yeah, but out in like, just general conversation with people, it's not my thing.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I got one to add to this. It's not so much talking, but it is happens at a campsite, and we're going to maybe touch on this in a little bit. If somebody's backing in their travel trailer, Sean, do you? This is a great question for you because you are a travel trailer person. Do you ever walk over and start helping them back in? Would you ever just walk up and start telling them, "Oh, you got to cut the wheel more this way or that way"?
Not unless they asked.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
same here.
No.
Me personally, feel as if I can do a better job without somebody helping me. Even if it looks like I'm struggling a little bit, everybody gives directions a little differently. And you may not really be the help that you think you are by trying to guide somebody into a spot. So I think that is a very important thing. Unless they ask you, unless they say, hey, you know what? This is in my blind spot. When I turn my truck, I'm not able to see this anymore. My backup camera doesn't see it either. People will ask for help if they need help backing up. But you know what, Sean? I see it a lot. I see people backing in to a site and somebody gets up out of their chair and walks over and just starts navigating them. I'm like, this person didn't ask for your help. He's probably fine. Leave him alone. You might be tired and cranky after a long day of driving, and you might be a little slower backing in, or it may take you one or two. So what? Yeah, just let
Yeah.
the person go. Let's let them. Believe me, that person will ask for help if they feel like they need help, and if not, then that's if they don't want help, um, then that's fine too.
Maybe they're wanting to figure it out on their own, and it's a struggle at first, but they wanna figure it out. So,
Yeah, yeah, I agree with
yeah,
that too.
I say unless they ask, I don't voluntarily help.
Yeah, and we're going to get into that question a little bit more in just about three more questions, I think.
Yeah.
This is an interesting question because I wonder if this doesn't happen that much anymore because a lot of people do streaming. But what if I forgot to put my antenna down and I drive off? What type of damage could I be looking at? And one, tree damage for sure. It's going to get caught on something. I know for Sabrina and I, we have measured our RV, so we know the exact height that our RV is. So if I see a road, a sign, or anything that tells me my height, sometimes it's close, but I'm still like, okay, I can make it. If our antenna was up, we wouldn't make it, and then the antenna's torn off. It could cause roof damage and stuff like that. But I wonder now in the days of, I think they used to call those antennas like a bat wing antenna.
Bat wings, yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if nowadays I feel like I don't see them as often, and I wonder if it's because most people are either doing like a flat panel Starlink. They may just be streaming off of hotspots that don't really have external antennas and stuff like that. So I think nowadays it's maybe a little safer. It's something that you don't really need to worry about.
Yeah, I've actually don't have a bat wing antenna. I have a antenna that's mounted permanently up on my RV, and it sticks up higher than almost well, it's about the same height as the air conditioner, but it's right on the edge. So it's right on the passenger side edge of the RV. And so I've had 2 of those taken off by low-hanging branches on, non-highway roads. So it does happen, and, I mean, I've had to replace some wiring, but that was the worst of it, and the main thing is, as soon as you notice that it's gone, and usually somebody will pull up beside you and say, "Hey, your antenna flew off back there," uh, then make sure you have some duct tape and some plastic,
Yeah.
to cover up that opening, because if you drive through rain or snow or something like that and you get moisture inside your RV, that can create a lot of problems. So I would say it won't do damage if you fix it up really quickly, and then make sure you have it repaired properly so that there's no leakage into your RV.
Yeah, that's probably the main concern is going to be a water damage, water leak, water finding its way into your roof or something like that.
Yeah. I would say another question related to this, Kenny, and I've known somebody to do it, is what if you drive off with one of your slides out?
I've seen that. Yeah. Um, it's funny. Uh, I think it's funny with like all the tech that's out there. There is nothing that prevents you from being able to drive with a slide out. Like I know in my RV, if I put my RV in drive, it automatically lifts my jacks. Like I can't accidentally drive away with my jacks down. Once the vehicle goes in drive, it'll lift my jacks. Or if I take off my emergency brake, my jacks will automatically lift. But there's nothing that says, I have a little red light that says that my jacks are down on my dash, but I don't have anything that tells me that my slides are out. And I think it's easier to drive away with a slide out.
Yeah, and I think it could be a problem because, depending on your RV and the way they make the slides, some say to level and then
Hmm.
put your slides in and out. Some say to make sure your jacks are up and then put your slide in. So if you have one that's very sensitive to not being perfectly level, then you go to put your slide in after you've driven a little bit, it could create some problems.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's for some people saying, well, wouldn't you see it in your mirror? Some slides come out the back of an RV. So you might not necessarily even notice. And I have heard of people doing this. I have heard of people that have tried to drive with their slide out. So it does, we're not making this up. It does happen. I think honestly, for all this stuff, the antenna, the slides, your awning, your power, water, everything, I think the takeaway here is to definitely have some type of checklist that you go through to make sure that you are ready for departure.
Yeah.
That could be a checklist on paper, or there's apps that you can use too. There's a lot of apps. Even our Garmin GPS, I believe, has a check off area in it that you can make like a little list of checking things off. It just makes it easy to try to make you feel a little bit more comfortable. Yeah, there's a lot to the RVs. There's a lot of connections and a lot of things that you deploy.
Yeah, and there's a reason why the airline travel is so safe nowadays, is because they use so many checklists to make sure things are done before they take off or land. They have several checklists, so having a checklist is a good idea. You can also use, like, on the iPhone, you can use the Notes app as a
Hmm.
checklist and check things off. So lots of ways to do it. But yeah, I agree with you, Kenny. I think the best way to do it is to have a checklist, even though you've done it 100 times. Make sure you go through that checklist and make sure everything's done, because it's the one time you say I don't need it, then
Hmm.
something's going to happen.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, and I think it helps with this next question is it normal to feel overwhelmed the first couple of times or the first few trips that you go out in your RV? I think having a checklist will kind of help with that stress because it is overwhelming in the beginning of everything that needs to be kind of set up or breaking back down again. But I think it is pretty normal to be overwhelmed your first couple times doing an RV trip, especially if it's your first time driving any type of big vehicle. I mean, like we said earlier, you can get a Class A motorhome all the way up to 44 feet long, and they are just about as they The Class A motorhome at any feet, at any length, I should say, is almost the same width of as your lane. You get very little wiggle room, and on a breezy day, you get pushed around a little bit, or trucks going by you will push you around a little bit. So it can be, I think, overwhelming. It's not just an overwhelming thing either maybe at the on the road. It could also be at the campsite. Did I pack everything that I need for this trip? Did I forget anything? Did I leave anything behind? But I would say if you're new to RVing and you are feeling overwhelmed, like Sean had mentioned earlier, there are classes that you can take for the driving that are going to help you. But I would also say push through it just a little bit. I know there are people out there that had tried RVing and for whatever reason felt overwhelmed, didn't like it, and they kind of gave up on it. And I would say push through a little bit, push yourself a little outside of your comfort level because that's not a feeling that lasts very long. I think you get a couple drives under your belt, you set up a couple times, you meet some nice people out on the road, and you kind of get an understanding of, oh yeah, this is actually fun. It's probably not as easy. So if you want to compare like RVing to other types of trips as to like maybe just getting in your car and driving to a hotel, it's something that you're very familiar with. You've driven your car several times. It's not a big deal. You pack a suitcase, which you've probably done since you were a little kid. You go on vacation type of thing. So RVing is a little different. And I think it is normal to feel just a little overwhelmed in the beginning.
Kenny, we just de-winterized our RV and took it out last weekend for the first time for the season. And even then, I mean, I've been RVing since 2014, and that first trip of the year is always a little overwhelming.
Hmm.
And we forgot a few things, nothing catastrophic, but, it's just getting back into that rhythm of packing up and taking it out as opposed to when you're full time traveling, you pretty much have that down. But seasonal RVers, I would say that first trip or two of the season, it is a little bit more stressful than the rest of the year.
Yeah, for sure. But you get over it.
Yeah.
You'll be okay. Now to throw this question out here, after we just told you you get over it and everything, and the question that we talked a little bit about, should somebody jump out and help you try to back in? This is a fun question because it just is a fun question. Is everybody watching me try to back in my RV to a site? And the answer is yes. I don't,
Yes,
I
absolutely.
mean, this could probably be a sport on television. People at the campground love to watch you back in your spot. Why that is, I don't know. It's like an event for us sometimes at a campground. Sometimes at a campground, you might be just hanging out at the campground all day and there might not be a whole lot going on. So you coming coming into the campsite towards the end of the day may be the entertainment that everybody's been looking for.
Sometimes people are watching you not because you're doing a bad job or
No.
not to put any pressure on you. Sometimes they're watching you to see if they can learn something.
Yeah. Or just to
Yeah.
see how you're doing it.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
what's different about it, especially if it's in a tight spot. There are, some sites that are on a curve with a narrow road. I'm thinking of as one of my favorite places to camp, but down in Florida at Walt Disney World, Fort
It's tight.
Wilderness, it's a
That's the
tight,
toughest place to back in.
the whole thing is a loop. So the whole thing's on a curve. Like Sean said, it's tight. Like though that little road, it's a one-way road. So it's not two-way traffic. So it's narrow. And you do not have a lot of room to swing in to get your back end into your spot, which is funny because the site itself can be huge.
Huge, yeah.
But the little opening, the curve, the narrow road, yeah, it's
And
a
there's
tough
always
one.
people watching you back in there.
Kids, yeah, I mean, you got kids running around, so you're trying not to run over any
Cars
kids.
behind you and golf carts waiting.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Yeah, you're right
Yeah.
about the cars and the golf carts too, because it is just a one-way road.
One way.
Once they're there, they're there. They gotta wait until you get out of the way. Yeah, it's fun for people to watch. I know I enjoy watching people back in, and sometimes I'm like, "Wow, he or she did a great job," or other times I'm like, "Well, they might be new to this." But I'm always curious to see how people approach it.
We were in a state park one time, which are traditionally pretty small, narrow
Mhm.
roads too. And we were backing in, and this lady was standing across. and she was just standing there, like, watching, like, looking directly at us, and, I was like, "What in the hell is this lady doing? Why
Yeah.
is" you know? And, we got into the spot, and, I got out of the truck, and she came over, and she's like, "I'm sorry for just standing there watching you, but you did such a good job. I just wanted to watch how good you were doing
Mm.
backing in." So, sometimes they're not doing it to make fun of you, they're doing it, but most of the time they are. But who
Yeah.
cares? You don't need to worry about other people, just do your best, and if it takes you 20 tries, then it takes you 20 tries.
You'll learn from it that way. And Sean,
Yeah.
I would imagine too from I know for me as a spectator, when I see somebody that has an RV like what you used to have where with your Cyclone with the triple axle and it's just huge and your truck being large too, they were always the ones I want to see. I'm like, I want to see this person back this 42-foot RV into this spot just because I was always amazed that people could get into some of these spots because they just didn't look large enough. But I guess you do have a lot of articulation with your pivoting on a fifth wheel, especially, right? You get
Yeah, on a
more
fifth wheel, yeah.
than a bumper pull would, right?
Yeah,
You just get a lot of articulation on the bumper pull,
a
but
lot.
probably not as
Yeah.
much
Yeah,
as
the fifth wheel's a lot.
yeah. Yeah, it's always surprising to me just how much they can like really get that point to bend. But yeah, so that's why a lot of times I'm watching, especially coming from a motorized, I'm only 28 feet. For the most part, my RV is not that difficult to back into spots. So I'm always interested in watching people back in like the bigger vehicles. If somebody pulls in with a little tiny towable or a van, I never watch them. They're not exciting. There's nothing to see there. I want to see those 40 footers backing in.
When Julie and I were first RVing, we had that big cyclone, and we were trying to park at it back into a spot, and Julie got so frustrated with me because it is hard to back those things in that she walked away, and luckily, somebody was watching, and came out to my truck and was like, because I was just basically sitting there, I didn't have any guide,
Oh
and
yeah.
he was like, "I know how those wives can be." And he guided me in.
Oh,
So,
okay.
sometimes, it's good to have people watching.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of arguments with spouses backing in a RV travel trailer or even the motorized and, class A or something like that. And they sometimes will have walkie talkies and you can just hear them without even the walkie talkie because they start shouting at each other through the
Yeah.
window. And he'll say, I am doing what you're telling me to do. Or she'll say, you're not doing what I'm telling you to do. It's like, I'm doing exactly what you're telling me. I see a lot of argument.
Yeah. Yeah, it's bad sometimes.
So that's why I say it's somewhat of an entertainment for everybody at the campground, but I wouldn't worry about it too much. I agree. I think you mentioned earlier, Sean, about that person watching you, and you're like, why are they watching? I don't like people watching me while I'm backing in. I also don't like having people watch me when I set up my campsite, and I feel like that's a thing too. I feel like people will sometimes watch people set up campsites, and I guess that could also be that they're just maybe trying to learn of like
Trying to
a
learn, yeah.
routine or the steps that you take. I know I always start with fresh water first. Like I do have a system to it, and sewer is usually last. So maybe it is just that they're curious. I don't know, but I don't like being watched.
That was the worst part of having people recognize us from YouTube is
Mm.
that then they're watching you to be critical, right? You think they're doing it to be critical, but most times they're probably not. They just are watching because they know who you are.
Yeah, they could be trying to get you in like a gotcha moment. Like, oh, look at
Yeah.
them. They connect this here, and then they touched their nose, and then they
Yeah.
went back to their sewer. Like, who knows what? Yeah, yeah.
I think that wraps up all these questions that people have, Kenny.
Yeah, and if you're listening to the show, we highly encourage you. If there is a question that you want to ask us, and you're shy about or you're afraid to ask, don't be. Nobody's really going to judge you. If you want to ask us a question, we'd love to answer it. We don't have to answer it online. We can just write you back if there is a question that you have for us, or if there's something maybe that we mentioned in this episode that you would like us to elaborate on. We're more than happy to do that.
Like Kenny said, well, first, we want to thank everybody for listening today to this episode. And if you're a newbie, we hope we gave you some answers. and maybe a little reassurance that nobody ever figures it out completely. We're all still learning as RVers. There's always tips and tricks you can learn, even when you've been doing it for 10 years or more. If you have a question, like Kenny said, that we didn't cover or that you're not brave enough to ask anyone else, go ahead and send us a message either at Sean@beyondthewheel.com or Sean@beyondthewheelpodcast.com or Kenny at beyondthewheelpodcast.com. And we would love to answer it for you or help you find the right direction to go to find your answer. If you enjoyed the show, please leave a review and subscribe on the podcast platform that you are listening to us on, or even on YouTube. It really helps other RVers find us. And so until next time, well, I guess we want to thank our sponsors, Battleborn Batteries. We really do enjoy their products. We both have them and probably wouldn't RV without them at this point. And they just provide great customer service as well as a lot of support that goes unmentioned to the RV community. So we're really big fans of Battleborn Batteries. So until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and we will talk to you again in 2 weeks.
Looking to get out there and stay out there? Battleborn Batteries lithium-ion batteries are here to power your RV, marine, and off-grid adventures. Designed as an easy drop-in replacement for traditional lead-acid batteries, these reliable solutions have 2 to 3 times the power, charge 5 times faster, are a fifth of the weight, and last 10 times longer. Offered in a variety of models in unique sizes and shapes, ranging from 50 amp hour to a robust 270 amp hour, and backed by a 10-year warranty. Battleborn batteries are built to fit your needs and power your experiences. On the road, on the water, and off the grid, reliable power is here. Check them out at battlebornbatteries.com. With the complexity of all the systems in an RV, I always say it's not if something's going to break, but a matter of when is something going to break. That is why I think an extended warranty for RVs is so important. We first interviewed wholesale warranties back in 2019 and immediately became impressed with how their policies worked, such as you can take your RV to any licensed repair shop, including mobile repairs. They also have personalized service plans, making sure you are getting the right policy for your needs. And if you think your RV is too old for a policy, you might be surprised to hear that RVs up to 20 years old can still be approved for a policy. That is more age lenient than most RV parks I've stayed at. Go to wholesalewarranties.com/beyond the wheel or click the link down below in our show notes to get your free quote today.